ओम पूर्णमदः पूर्णमिदं पूर्णात् पूर्णमुदच्यते पूर्णस्य पूर्णमादाय पूर्णमेवावशिष्यते. So welcome to our Saturday morning session. Today we will talk once again on meditation. We'll go in some depth about the functioning of mind and how we can make our meditation more effective. So let us start with some of the characteristics of our mind, which actually are the fundamental reason why we should do meditation. So the first of such characteristic is that the mind is always looking outwards, because our sense organs, all the sense organs of our perception, they are designed in such a way that they look into outside world normally, unless you make an effort to divert them inside. Like our ears will listen to the sounds which are created outside. Our eyes will look outside in the world, what is happening there. Similarly, our sense of smell, sense of taste, sense of touch, they all act outwards. The fundamental of senses is to look outward. An effort has to be made to bring them inward, and that is why the natural process is outward. And since the senses are working outward and they provide an input to the mind is also actually driven outward. So this is one fundamental fact of our mind, that all the time we are engaged with the world outside. That is first tendency of human mind, which is a fact, that we tend to look out rather than look inside. This is we must understand clearly. The second fact is that outside world has so many attractions and so many emotions and so many, you know, what you call sort of things which are keeping you engaged, that sometimes you are actually overcrowded with all kinds of thoughts and emotions. For example, you see the TV, you hear the news, some tragic event like what happened to the helicopter of General Rawat, or what happens on the farmers' agitation, or what happens between Ukraine or Russia, or what happens between in some terrorist attacks in some places. So all these things keep you engaged and keep you emotionally occupied. That is one part, only the TV news. Then you read the newspapers, you see the social media, you look at your WhatsApp and your Telegram and other social media channels, and you are completely fascinated by some, you are distracted by some, you start feeling pain by some, your emotions are becoming more and more strong in the process. So things which are pleasant for you gives you happiness. Things which are not pleasant, they start giving you unhappiness, though they have nothing to do with you. They're all happening outside, and they are reported through various channels of media, whether it is TV, whether it's radio, whether it's newspapers, social media, or news coming from your friends and family members. There is other channels of news. All of these news ideas, they keep crowded in your mind. They start crowding in your mind and keep you engaged, and some of them make you highly emotional, either in positive sense or negative sense. Some of them make you angry, some of them make you frustrated, some of make you anxious. So all these things keep happening without our knowledge constantly. Because the first characteristic of mind is to look outward. And secondly, these events which we see outside, which are not directly connected to us at all, because we lived without these events when there was no TV, there was no even radio. I remember my childhood. We didn't even have a radio. There was no TV, there was no social media. We lived without all this news. So this news has no direct relevance to our life. Our personal life is not involved in those all those events. These are happening outside in the world, but we feel involved when we connect to those news items. So this is another fact which we must understand fully, that we remain engaged with this outside world because of all these new channels, all these new media instruments which are available at our disposal. And connected with this is that because of that interaction, our emotions are all the time working. Sometimes we become angry, sometimes we become frustrated, sometimes we become exhausted, sometimes we become anxious, and sometimes we become very, what you call, thankful to others. All these things keep happening without our knowledge. That is the second characteristic of human mind. The third important characteristic of human mind is that somehow or the other, we remain aligned with one or the other thing. And the things which are not aligned with us, we become against them. For example, somebody is aligned to BJP, something which is pleasant to BJP or which makes BJP, come out as a better party, you feel happy. Something which is, critical of BJP, you feel unhappy. You belong to Hinduism, somebody else belongs to Islam, somebody else belongs to Christianity. Things which are pleasing to that particular religion, you feel happy. Things which are critical, you feel unhappy. You belong to an institution. For example, you are working in a, say, car manufacturing company. Now, things which are good about your car, people talk highly about the car produced by your company, you feel happy. Things which are critical, you feel unhappy. So the alignment with any sort of thing, it could be an institution, it could be religion, it could be political party, it could be, a language group, it could be a social group. Once you align with something, then the things which are in line with the alignment makes you happy. Things which are not in line with alignment, they make you unhappy. This process also happens automatically, bringing you happiness and unhappiness. You don't play any role in it, but you are all the time aligned. If you analyze your behavior, you will feel, even I feel quite often, that since I am aligned with this particular institution, if somebody talks critical of it, I feel agitated. Why? Because the criticism is directed to an institution to which I am aligned to, of which I am a part. So this is how the human mind works. So this is the third aspect of human mind, which is extremely important for us. So the crowding, the judgment, good or bad, or pleasant, unpleasant, all that happens because of this process. Then there is or you can call it a colored vision. Our, perception becomes colored because of our alignment. And then we judge things based on that color. Then the next point is that, we are self-driven. Everybody is self-driven. Things which you like because you think this is in my interest, then you feel happy. Things which are against your interest, you perceive, then you feel unhappy. So the self interest dominates our personal conduct and personal thought process. Wherever you feel that things are happening which are going to help you, you feel happy. things which you perceive are not going to help you, you feel unhappy. So this process also continues. In Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, there's a very long verse which defines that how self is more important than anything else. It says that your relationship with your wife is also dominated by your own self interest. Your relationship with your parents is also dominated by your own self interest. Your relationship with even with your children is dominated by your self interest. So, all that self interest is one of the realities of human nature. This is part of us. And therefore, our thinking is guided by the perception what is in my interest and what is against my interest. And that again makes you happy, unhappy, angry, critical, frustrated, all those emotions which power out, they happen because of that factor as well. So these are three important factors which actually lead to emotions in our mind. And then there is another factor which is what we call in Sanskrit Kim Kartavya Vimud. In, in many times we are in a dilemma, a state of dilemma, what to do, what not to do. For example, an employee in your company misbehaves or he has done some fraudulent activity, and then you want to dismiss him. But then there is an argument in your mind. There are arguments from outside as well. Oh, his life will be affected, his family will be affected. Should I go ahead and give him that severe punishment or just give him a warning and leave him? So, those kind of dilemmas, they happen every single day in our life. And because of that dilemma, again, emotions are triggered in the mind. And we are in a state of perpetual indecisiveness. And not only perpetual indecisiveness, there is a chatter going in our own mind for and against those decisions, whether I should do this, whether I should not do it. If you observe that chatter, arguments for and against keep happening in our mind without our knowledge, sometimes for hours. We don't know, we don't even think about anything. It's all the time the process is going on, if you observe. So these are very important facets of the functioning of human mind. Just to repeat them, firstly, we have a tendency to look outward. That is one. Secondly, there's a crowding of a lot of thoughts because of the media inputs which is coming, the input coming from outside, whether it is from media or whether it is from friends and social, gatherings and all that, that keeps crowding. Then because of our alignment with XYZ institutions or XYZ thought or XYZ philosophy, we have certain emotions which are triggered. If the thoughts are in alignment with our alignment, it's good. If they are against that alignment, then it hurts. That is another factor. Then the self-interest, which is a driving force in our constitution, that also triggers all these what you call emotions all the time. And these emotions are happening because of the interaction with outside world. This is very important. All these emotions are taking place because of the interaction with outside world. If you don't have interaction with outside world, these emotions will not be triggered. These perceptions are happening because of that. Any interaction where you feel pity for somebody or you feel angry on somebody else and you feel frustrated with some situation, all this is because of the interaction outside. And that interaction is the continuous source of our stress, our tension, and crowding of our mind. And it affects our body as well. Because when your mind is crowded, when your mind is stressed, the ailments happen inside the body. In fact, the word, Sanskrit word swasth, is very important. It means swa means self, st means sthiti, based. You are established. So if you are established in your own self, then you are swasth. Then nothing outside event will impact on you, and you will be very healthy. So this is the perfect definition of health, not the modern definition. This word itself is a great definition of health. So establishing yourself in yourself, your I would say your mind and your uh, self in your own self. I don't know how to express that in in words. Is the most important part of getting out of all these emotions and stress and health problems and all these issues. And that is what meditation helps us in doing. Meditation is the best way to reduce all these exchanges with the outside world, to reduce all these emotional outbursts which keep happening time and again without our knowledge, most often without our knowledge. I would say 90% of the time these things are happening without our knowing anything about it. It's just a matter of habit. We are in what you call autopilot mode. We are operating in those directions without realizing what is happening. And that meditation is the process which can actually bring this autopilot mode to your attention, that please intervene, don't allow this to happen. And that is why meditation is extremely important in the entire process. Now I would like to use another Sanskrit, it is called Mahavakya in certain ways, and it's a very useful approach given by the great saints in our literature. There are only two words. It's called neti neti. I'm sure you must have heard about these words. Neti neti. Not this, not that. Not this, not that. This is the meaning of neti neti. Now, this is the way to move forward in meditation. How? Before we do that, let me explain three words: drashti, drashta, and drashya. Drashya is the scene which you see outside. For example, you look at a picture, it's drashya. Or you look at some human beings, walking on the street, that is the drashya. Or you look at nature, that is drashya. Drashta is your real self, that is the drashta. And drashti is coming through your sense organs. Your eyes are looking at that. So the drashti represents your body, drashta represents your own self, and drashya represents the outside world. Now, wherever you feel that there is a drashya, then it means that is not you. The drashya cannot be you. If you are looking at your laptop, that is the drashya. Now that laptop is not you. If I'm looking at my cell phone, that is not me, that is the drashya. Drashya is thing which is outside me. And now, through the process of neti neti, we have to move from drashya to drashta. That is a process which is gradually eliminating things which are not you. How do you eliminate them? That is what we do in meditation. First, you eliminate your body. You look at the body parts. You see, this is my finger, this is my hand, this is my leg, this is my skin. Now, that my is a possessive pronoun. My means not me. It belongs to me. It means there's something else. It's similar to saying that my purse and my house and my leg. It's the same pronoun we use, even in English. So that my means it is a drashya, which is outside me. So neti neti, this is not me. This is not me. This is removed. So the body is not me. That's the first step. When we do meditation, We look at our body parts, we see and we say, this is not me, we eliminate the body. That is first step we do. Then the second step comes. Then you look at uh, sense organs, the drashya. The drashya comes from the sense organs. You perceive it through your ears or your eyes or your nose. And then again the same thing happens, because neither eye nor nose nor the sense organs are not you. They are working at your direction or perhaps on their own, but they are not you. So you have to eliminate that part as well, that eye is not me, nose is not me, ear is not me. It is me beyond that. Actually, Kena Upanishad talks about this in great depth. So first we eliminate the body, then we eliminate the sense organs, because they are not me. Neti neti, no, not me. Then you go to the mind. When you eliminate your sense organs, some thoughts will stop, because the drashya from outside world will not enter without sense organs, and that part of thought will stop. But then your mind will start churning a lot of other thoughts from the what you call subconscious mind, from the events which have happened in the past, or the fears that you have of the future. Because of those events and the fear, the mind starts churning a lot of thoughts, though your sense organs are not working. You have eliminated them through the process of neti neti, but still mind is operating. A lot of thoughts are, debates are going inside the mind. The chatter is going on all the time in the mind. Now, that chatter which is going on, is it you? If it is you, then you cannot observe that chatter. If you are observing that chatter, it means that has to be outside. That is again a drash. That is again not you. It is not the drashta, it is the drash. Because you can observe the chatter. And that is why in the meditation process, we observe the mind. We observe the thoughts coming in and coming out. That process we observe, and then we eliminate those, that this is not me. I am beyond this mind. And then comes the intellect. Intellect is the one which analyzes, which that chatter which works in the mind, that gives arguments pro and cons. And wherever there is analysis, that cannot be you, because analysis has to be outside. Any analysis you do, you cannot be part of the analysis. It is something else. There's some statistics, some reasoning, some arguments, pro and cons, and therefore you have to realize that that is also neti neti, that is also not me. So you have to eliminate one by one. Firstly, you have to eliminate the outside world. Outside world is drashya, it is not me. Then you have to eliminate your body. It is not me. The body is separate. It is neti neti, not me. Then you have to eliminate your senses. Those are not me. The senses are instruments at my disposal, which I use to observe the world. So eliminate them. That is not me, neti neti. Then you go to the mind and say, mind is chattering, mind is talking. I am able to observe the mind. I am able to direct the mind. So mind is not me. I am beyond mind. So you eliminate the mind. And then you go to the intellect, all the arguments, analysis, the pros and cons, the positivities and negativities, the legal issues, all that come into the purview of your buddhi, or we call it intellect. Now, that intellect is not you either, because that is outside. All that is happening outside, and you are able to observe it. So finally, you reach a state where you realize that my awareness is the one which is able to observe all this outside. So awareness is me. We may call it consciousness, we may call it Atma, we may call it awareness, but that is the one which has been constantly observing this outside drashya or outside world. Everything else is outside. And that inner core is reached through this process of neti neti. And that is what we do in our daily meditation. We eliminate the body. Firstly, we eliminate the body, we eliminate the world, then we eliminate the breath, then we try to bring the mind under check and we make it neutral, and then we reach the final core of our existence, that is me. And that is how you are able to reduce the impact of outside world on your thought process. The outside world is only provoking or triggering emotions and thoughts and frustrations in you without being part of you. That is very important. That is not part of you. If, for example, you shut down all your TV channels and WhatsApp and media and stay at home for 1 month, nothing will change in you. You will be actually better off. All these emotions will not affect you. And try and see, the world will remain the same. Only you will become better. So I do not want to say that you shut it down, but I want to say you shut it down in practical terms, in the sense that their impact on you is neutralized. You are not carried through that process. They are not able to trigger those emotional outbursts in you. That is the core of it. I'm not suggesting that you go and sit down in Himalaya and isolate yourself. No, that is, even if you do that, you might carry every part of this world in your mind there as well, and you might be chattering inside yourself all the time. So that is not a solution. The solution is that we are able to reduce the impact of outside events on ourselves. Everything is happening outside. Okay, they are happening on their own course, and I'm different, I'm separate. I don't have to be impacted by that process. My emotions, my thought process, my feelings should not be subject to that. And that is actually called liberation. You liberate yourself. You liberate yourself from the outside impact. You become self sufficient, that you are controlling your own self. That is the meaning of moksha and liberation, that the impact of the outside world on you is minimized and then finally nullified completely. And that is the process of meditation. Meditation means to establish your own control, to establish your own government inside yourself. You don't have to depend on other actors which are triggering all kinds of emotions and feelings in you. And that is extremely important. And that is why meditation is very, very important, to give you peace, to give you happiness, to give you what you call total control on your own self. So this is what I wanted to bring home. And this is a very in-depth analysis of mind, and we should understand this, that how the outside world is controlling us. Outside world is controlling us through variety of factors, and we have to first minimize that, and slowly we have to neutralize it to a point where that impact is zero. You are not immune to anything, but at the same time your inner core is not impacted by those events which are happening elsewhere. and then you are able to control yourself. You guide your actions yourself. Your actions are not guided by outside events. And that is what meditation brings you to. Meditation is therefore the core of our liberation, real liberation. It brings you under your own control, under your self control. You are not dependent on anybody else after that. So I think this is very, very important for all of us. And that is why when we do meditation, you realize we adopt the principle of neti neti, and finally we go to the drashta, the core of our existence, which you know is which is the one which we should be, not dictated by drashya, not dictated by drashti, but to be self, completely what you call sambhav. Actually, in Gita, Lord Krishna has used this word sambhav, that you are not impacted by the heat or the cold, or not impacted by happiness or unhappiness. The basic meaning is that your emotions are not triggered by things happening outside. Those emotions should be under your own control. And that happens because of this process which I explained to you, that we look outside, we get a lot of input which crowd our mind, which leaves a lot of scars and which leaves a lot of emotions triggered. Then we align ourselves with XYZ, and that alignment creates problem. Our selfishness, that things should be pleasant, unpleasant to myself, they create, and all this process leads to all kinds of emotions in us. Sometimes people get into depression. I've seen some people who sitting at home, they hear about some volcanic explosion far away, and they get into depression sitting in their home, thinking that they are going to die, or their relatives will going to die, and their whole existence will be in danger. And then they get into a spell of depression. Negative thinking goes on and on and on, and people become completely depressed. I've seen this situation myself. I've seen these kind of people who have all the negative thinking because of some event happening somewhere outside, which has no relevance to the life of the person concerned. So I think the whole purpose is to eliminate that impact on our own self, and that we should do in a very measured way, and that is what we try to do in meditation. So please take meditation as an extremely important part of our daily routine. I would suggest each one of us should do meditation at least 10 to 15 minutes every day, because that will be the time where you are able to completely isolate yourself from the outside world. And that practice, if continued, it will get into routine. It will become a matter of habit, when the outside events will not create emotional outburst inside you. The emotions could be pleasant, unpleasant, they could be depressing, they could be a lot of joyful, but all these emotions are ultimately uh, controlling you from outside, and you are not controlling yourself. So the let us understand this process. If you have any questions on this, I'll be happy to answer, but please think over it, why the outside world is impacting on you on day-to-day life, on daily basis, why your emotions are being triggered by events happening elsewhere. And these are the regions which I explained to you, the regions which could be just common to everybody coming from the media. They could be event particular to your family, in your friend circle, in your social circle. Then there could be events connected with your association with an institution, or with a particular country or a region or a language group or whatever. Or there could be emotions connected with your own perception of the self, the so-called, fear of outside world, the fear that this might hurt me, or this can create a problem of insecurity for me, or this can, uh, uh, you know, hurt my image in the society. All these fears are perceived notions. They come from the so-called self-interest of our own existence, and that is a judgment which comes out. It's not reality, it's a judgment. It's a judgment we do on our own self. And the outside world always has different opinions for everybody. Whatever you do, people will have a good or bad or neutral opinion about you. So that is immaterial. I gave you once an example of a grandson and a grandfather going with a camel from one village to another. Let me repeat that. So there was a grandfather and a grandson. They were in desert of Rajasthan, going from one place to another with a camel. So both of them sat down on the camel and started riding. After a few kilometers, a group of people met them. And these people say, look at these cruel people. It's so hot. Both of them are sitting and enjoying the camel ride. And they have no pity for the camel. The camel is suffering in this hot sun. So the grandfather thought, they are right. He, being the elder, he thought I should get down. He started walking with the camel. And they walked another few kilometers. Another group of people met. And they say, look at this, young boy. He has a lot of energy. He can walk. He's making his grandfather to walk in this hot sun. He has no pity for his grandfather. So the young boy said, yes, I think they're right. So he got down and he requested grandfather to ride the camel. He sat down and they started riding. Another few kilometers, another group of people. And they say, look at this old man. He is going to die in any way. He has no pity for his grandson. The grandson is suffering in this hot sun. So grandfather said, yeah, he's right. They're right. I should get down. So both of them started walking. And then another group of people, look at these foolish people. They don't know how to use this camel. The camel is enjoying and they are suffering in this hot sun. So you see, whatever you do in this world, you will always get positive, negative, neutral comments. So don't worry about that. Therefore, the outside event should not impact on you. You should judge things with your own scale, with your own capabilities, do them and then be under your own control. And that is what meditation brings us to. Meditation brings that self-confidence. It reduces gradually the impact of outside events on our behavior, on our emotions, on our conduct, on our thinking process. And that is very, very important. So I will stop here. If you have any questions, please let me know, because in my view, meditation is absolutely essential for leading a very healthy life to begin with. It's not only good for health and controlling stress, but also to be under your own control, not to be guided by the rest of the world. So this is what I would like to tell you about meditation today. Thank you very much. And if you have any question, let me know. Mandukya Upanishad is somewhat different than this approach. This approach is more in consonance with Kena Upanishad. Kena Upanishad says that you cannot talk about the Brahma or the Almighty, because it is He that enables you to talk. You cannot hear Him because it is He which enables you to hear. And you cannot even, meditate on Him because it is He who allows you to meditate. Manan bhi nahi kar sakte. So that process is the one which is important to understand the self. That is the one process. There's another root which is in Mandukya, which we will talk separately when we talk about Mandukya Puja.
नहीं ठीक.
That root is a different root that talks about the four states of human existence: the waking state, the dream state, the sleep state, deep sleep state, and beyond that. So these are two different methods of explaining the same approach. But the approach is to understand your own self. And meditation is the first step in understanding that self. And if we go through this approach of drashta, drashya, and drashti, and then eliminate the two, drashti and drashya, and slowly, slowly come back to your own drashta, you will reach there. So I will suggest for the time being, let us stick to this process of neti neti. And then we go to the Mandukya, we will discuss that in greater depth, how it can help us in coming to the same destination. Neti means this is not, that is not. That this is not me, that is not me. You see,
But something.
this hand, for example, this hand, I say. Now, this hand is you or not you? How do you find it out? Is it you? If I cut this hand and keep it aside, do I still exist? Yes, I exist, isn't it? Therefore, this hand is not me. If I lose my eyes, do I still exist? Yes, I exist. There are a lot of blind people who exist. So the eyes are not me. So that is what you have to go through this process. What is you and what is not you? What is apart from you? So you start from the outside world. For example, you start your house. Is your house you? No, the house is separate from you. It's a drashya. Then you say, is your wife you? No, she is separate from you. She is not you. When she doesn't exist, you still exist. And then applies to the body, when the body doesn't exist, do you exist? Yes, you do. You have seen a lot of people in coma, total coma. No body part is operating, nothing. They are like vegetables, but they still exist. So you are still there. So you have to eliminate each and everything. So you are different than body, you are different than your mind, you are different than your intellect, and you are reaching that state through meditation. If you observe my, process of meditation, we pass through the same state. First, we observe the body, then we eliminate it. Then we observe the breath, we discard it. Then we, put the mind at rest, and then we dissolve the mind and become with the self, one with the self. So that process we have to observe to eliminate all the outside elements which keep triggering thoughts and emotions in us without our proper knowledge. And that is very, very important. The thought process should be controlled by you, not by the outside world. And meditation teaches you, it leads you slowly, slowly to that stage where you are in control of everything. You see, even if you lose all your senses, you still exist. There are people by birth who are blind. There are people by birth who are not able to speak, who are not able to hear. And we don't know whether they are able to smell or not, because they cannot talk to you. Still they exist. They are the people. The existence is beyond that. So the sense organs are only the instruments available at our disposal. They are not me. They are not you. So we have to go beyond that. We have to discard neti neti, go beyond one after another. And that process we have to continue till we reach a stage where we cannot discard anything more. There's no difference between drashya and drashta. And that stage will lead you to your own self. When you become drashta, you become drashya, and you become drashti. All three are actually one. And that is the state where we need to reach through meditation. And I'm sure through this process, you can reduce, even if we don't go too much, advance into the process. Even then, I'm sure you can reduce your stress level considerably through the meditation process. To actually control the thoughts, they become more crowded and they try to attack you from different sides. It is exactly like, somebody comes and abuses you, and if you control him or abuse him again, he will abuse you even worse, in a worse way. He will become more ferocious afterwards. And if you completely ignore him, he will go away and he will feel frustrated that nothing could, he could not provoke you. So precisely the same way the mind works in the body. If you try to control the mind, it takes revenge and it comes with, renewed force, and it disturbs you. But if you allow it to just go on its own, then it feels frustrated and it disappears. So that is what we should do. Let me give you an example. In the vast open space is like your own self, okay? And the wind which is blowing in the space is like the mind. Mind is blowing all the time in that open space. Now, whenever you try to control that wind in the space, it will actually explode. Like you control the wind in a tire, as soon as there's a small puncture, it bursts out, with a force. You put it in a balloon, it bursts out with a force. But if you just allow it to flow on its own, it doesn't bother you. You stay quietly. The space remains quiet. Precisely the same way in our own body. If we allow the mind just to go and come back, and we just become observer, then the mind does not agitate much and it becomes cool, quiet, calm. But when we try to control it, it becomes worse. It actually agitates far more than in the normal course. So this is how the functioning of mind is. Actually, our ancient rishis said that the mind and the wind, they are made of the same material. The mind moves inside the body, the wind moves inside the space. That is the only difference. So I think we have to treat this mind the same way as we treat the wind in the space. If we collect the wind in the space and try to suppress it, it will create more, commotions and more problems. But if we allow it just to float on its own, it will not go without getting engaged with any one of them. And if you can reach that state, I think it's a very good state. It's a very advanced state when you can allow the thoughts to come and go without engagement. I think you already reached a state which is very, very high. So I think that, I hope that clear. Most of our, research, they used to do this kind of meditation to find the truth of life. If they want to understand the existence, what is existence, how it operates, they meditate on that particular issue deeply. and then they find answers. I have heard from very good sources that some people find the properties of the plants through meditation, deeply meditating on that plant and then finding out the properties. It's same thing like you analyze the substance in the laboratory and you find the properties. You can also do through your mind. Mind can be a laboratory for analyzing things and going deeper into a particular aspect. But that is possible only when you are able to focus. Because the mind, if it is crowded, if it is divided, if it is khand, then you cannot concentrate on that topic profoundly and you cannot get right answers. So, first, you have to have that focus, and that focus will come when you stop crowding of your mind, when you stop reacting to the outside events with emotions, then your focus will develop. And once you have developed that focus, then you are in a position to analyze a particular problem by meditating on that problem. And that is what our ancient sages did. They analyzed for example, they analyzed the solar system. How did they reach solar system? They had no, modern instruments, but they were able to tell you Navgraha. They were able to tell you what is the distance between the moon and the sun. They were able to tell you how the whole planetary system moves and how they could make a panchang. Now that is through meditation, because the mind is a great laboratory, but that works only when you have focused attention. These days we believe in multitasking. When I talk to younger generation, they all believe in multitasking. That multitasking means your mind in parts. It's khand. You cannot get right answer through multitasking. You have to have singular focus to reach right answer to a particular problem. So that is absolutely possible, but before you reach there, you have to uh, develop the focus of the mind by removing all these paraphernalia which is all the time attacking your mind from outside, which we discussed in detail today. So I think we have to first pacify the mind, bring it in a very quiet state where it is not agitating, where it is not responding to outside inputs, and then you can focus and find answers to some of the very deep issues and problems of life.